that's what being tactful is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I was just actually listening to an interesting audiobook. It's called Outliers. It's by a famous author who I can't think of right now. But Outliers talks about stories of success. And one of the stories it talks about that illustrates the importance of culture and how people communicate was stories about plane crashes and what happened that caused those plane crashes that were often because of communication issues, right? And it came down to one story that really sticks out in my mind is the story of Air Colombia and this crew that was running out of fuel, and they were needing to be able to make an approach. And what was happening was that the second officer, because of the way that they talked to each other, the second officer wasn't being direct. He wasn't telling the truth to the captain in a way that really communicated the urgency of what it was he wanted to tell him. And so because of these dynamics of the cultures in terms of how they perceive someone who's higher up than them, they would tend to change the way they communicate, so they wouldn't be as direct. And so he's trying to be tactful, right? Because he's a subordinate.
Is this in a panic moment?
It isn't in a panic moment. It's like the way it happens with these plane crashes, oftentimes it's like, something's like it's that in this instance, they're running out of fuel. They know they're running out of fuel, but they're not really relaying the urgency of it. So when the captain told the first officer, tell the air traffic control, say we're running out of fuel, say it's emergency. And so he said so then he tells air traffic control, he goes, and we're running low of fuel. Right, and just says that, but doesn't say it's an emergency.
Right.
Right. So because he wasn't able to he was trying to be tactful because of his position, but in the end he wasn't being truthful, and this is what led to air crashes. Suddenly they did run out of fuel, and there wasn't enough runway, and then boom, they were gone. So
crazy.
This is the kind of thing that Outliers talked a lot about, was this dynamic of how people talk to each other, right? And it has a lot to do with their cultural upbringing. And you'd be surprised, it's not just their upbringing in their families. It goes back hundreds of years. It's amazing, just how far back that cultural influence goes. And if we don't have that kind of experience inbred into us, if we have a totally different experience. It's just something that happens with hundreds and hundreds of years of culture that gets into the way that people work and the way that people think. So being tactful, it's a challenge, especially for a lot of cultures where there's a hierarchy.
And you don't talk like that
and
to somebody.
You just don't talk. And so it's a real challenge for people to develop this skill. It's an important skill because, as I just illustrated, it could have avoided disasters. Not to mention that for people to be able to be direct, but then also be able to regard their superiors in a very, I guess, a humbling way, right? That could be very advantageous in terms of being able to make progress in terms of your career as well as in business.